Good evening. I'm going to call the May 10, 2022 agenda meeting to order. Jamie Puccioni is present. Jessica Brennan.
Present.
John De La Rada.
Here.
Bill McPartlin.
Here.
Jason Moskowitz.
Present.
Elena Finnan.
Here.
Other department heads who are present: Elizabeth Greenwood, Chief Jordan Koshin,
Lori Peretti.
Lori Peretti, thank you,
Ray Smith.
Ray Smith,
Seth
Matt
Goldstein.
Yetto, Seth Goldstein, Janet Wynn, and Laura Robertson. Okay, thank you. All right, let's go ahead and begin with Finance and General Government Committee. Thank you.
Good evening. We have a resolution for certain budgetary modifications, a resolution appointing alternate members to the town's ethics board, a resolution regarding temporary amendments to the town's purchasing policy, a resolution permanently appointing a probationary accountant, a resolution to establish a standard workday for elected and appointed officials, a resolution authorizing the sale of surplus telephone equipment, a resolution authorizing an MOA with the CSEA bargaining unit regarding the addition of a senior engineering technician, a resolution adopting the New York Government Finance Officers Association Code of Ethics, a resolution authorizing an MOA with the Highway and Parks Department Union, and then those that were just added from the floor, a resolution adopting a policy for a sick bank for the non-represented personnel, a resolution adopting a policy for remote work, a resolution to change a job title, a resolution to adjust the fund balance amounts to match the costs of the equipment purchases, and a resolution to hire a student worker for the IT department. Are there any questions?
I got a question on the work from home policy. So it says the policy will go in effect and then it is discontinued at the sole discretion of the town of Niskuna. Does that mean the town board or is that the town supervisor?
The policy would fall under the town board. The ability of the individual to use the policy would be signed off by their department head and the supervisor.
Okay. Does that say that in here? It says pursuant to approval of the town supervisor. I don't recall reading that
I'm sorry, which paragraph are you looking at?
well, you're saying it's under the approval of the supervisor and the department head.
Yeah, if you look on the
correct?
second page of it, both the employee and their department head has to sign off on it in order to ensure that they can adequately conduct their work from home.
Okay. Maybe we
Not
should-
all positions can, obviously. So some can work remotely and some cannot.
Right, it shows the department head signatures, but on
Yep.
the first page, it says approval of the town supervisor.
Right. Well, because the supervisor directs the workforce, so.
The actual policy itself, though, falls under the discretion of the entire board.
Right,
Right,
all
right.
policies do.
Well, we might want to change the language a little bit there and say it's the sole discretion or discontinue the discretion of the town board.
I think that paragraph above paragraph 1, is that what you're looking? This policy.
Yes.
this-
Yeah.
Yeah. So just changing the town of Niskuna to the Niskuna Town Board.
Yep.
Okay, we can make that note in here.
Should we change the first paragraph to say town supervisor and department head, just to make it?
I'd like more clarification there. I mean, we're asking for a signature from the department head, but I think we should put it at the top.
I'm sorry, where would you like the department head?
Pursuant to the approval of the town supervisor and,
The very first sentence.
Okay, let me-
department head or appropriate department head.
So not the town board.
Well, that's just, so the town supervisor and the department head would allow the individual to work
Yes.
from home.
That makes
And
sense.
we're putting this into effect, and then we, the town board, are the only ones that can withdraw this
The policy.
policy.
Yeah,
That
all
works.
policies are always approved by the town board, but the supervisor directs the workforce via the department head. So however you'd like that worded, I can clarify that. Okay.
So on the final page, including a signature line for the supervisor?
Absolutely. I can do that.
Should we have something in there about requesting the employee to come back to an in-person work? And are we going to, I read it quickly, I don't know if that's in there, that maybe we want them to come back to work, or the supervisor and the department head want them to come back to work, but it doesn't really specify, do we give them a certain notice for that? You know, a day's notice, a week's notice? What if that individual doesn't want to come back to an in-person job?
Matt and Ray, you guys have looked at this? Are you,
Their workers are probably the least likely to be affected by it, I would think, but
the least?
yeah, they generally can't work remotely.
Okay.
It's usually more your typical
All right. And
administrative staff.
the sick policy though, there's no issues with the sick policy with Ray and Matt? Okay.
That's actually the benefit that we never had before. They worked on that for a couple different circumstances, and it's very beneficial to our people.
Thank you.
Moving back to the remote work policy, perhaps we should consider on the document listing the dates, or, I don't know, like Bill is referencing some sort of specific terms.
Yes, Matt.
Or Ali-
Yeah, so I mean, it would be important to be able to, when we need them back in the office.
There is a section 13 on this, does actually say that the town retains the right to modify the policy on a temporary basis because of business necessity. For example,
Yeah.
the employee may be required to come into the office on a particular day or as a result of an employee request. So we can certainly add a term period. This was meant to give both the town and the employees a little more flexibility, because right now we don't have a way for people to work from home. So for example, we have a number of people right now who are
Mhm.
out on COVID leave, and we don't have a way for them to legally work from home. They have to just be on leave, right, and not doing work. So we're actually trying to just find ways to be flexible with that.
We got through the whole pandemic with people working some remotely.
Yeah, and those policies all sunset, so we no longer have them on the books. So we're just trying to figure out a way to do this that works for both sides. So I don't know.
They're still under the direction of the department. head.
Right, they still fall under the director of their department head. So if their department says, no, it's time to come back to work. So that's,
Yeah, but you know, if it's not in black and white and writing, we got a lawyer down here. You know.
But under the direction of the department head that we work for. Or how would we apply procedures?
I don't know if we want to, go with that burden, but I just think we need some more language in there that, the supervisor and or department head, needs that individual to come back, that,
I'll work with Beth to strengthen the language.
yeah, well, we can work that out.
thank you.
You're welcome.
We'll have it ready. So time frames, making notes.
Also, in number 13, when it says the town retains the right, does that mean town board again in that instance?
Yes, anytime there's a policy, it falls back to the board.
Beth, just out of curiosity, was this policy recommended by the HR firm, or was this?
This was a model policy they sent us. They gave us a starting point to work from.
Okay.
Mhm. One of our problems is because we have 4 different unions and then non-represented folks, trying to find something that isn't in direct conflict with something that's already in one of our union contracts is sometimes a challenge for us.
Thank you for working on this. It's really important.
Yeah, I would also like to say thank you, not just for COVID related, but I think it provides important workplace flexibility for parents. And that's really important. Moving on to Public Works, starting with Highway, Transportation.
Okay, number 10 is a resolution authorizing the purchase of equipment for use in the highway department. This was the same list that was distributed when we did our budget last year. And Beth spoke of this at finance, that she would distribute that list back to you as well. We've done the pricing on this equipment 4 different times. So it's important that, we try to go through, if you're good with the numbers, that we try to get it through this month so we can place the orders. Vendors are warning of surcharges, if you don't get in a certain date, the build dates are already pushed back. As of the truck I ordered last year still hasn't been through the assembly line. So that's what we're looking at. So the sooner we can get in, hopefully we locked into these contracts. I totally some of the prices were considerably higher than what I initially had said. But they've grown since just when we did our budget. So, if we can do it, great. If we can, I understand. I mean, those were recommendations to move us forward. So hopefully we got it as close as we could. They're all done by contract, so we're really not going to get them cheaper. So I guess it's all due to the numbers. Same with number 11. This is just different categories in the different parts of the budget. This is actually for the Parks Department, the list that was in that part of the budget. And then number 12 was the purchase of the bus for the senior center. So I just broke them out the way that they're listed through what lines they're paid for. So.
Do you consider the bus for the senior center? Do we have a bus right now?
We have a bus in very poor condition.
How many people use it, you think?
Think it can, Laura, do you remember what it was? How many does it? 18?
That's more than I thought.
So we're duplicating it with a, wheelchair lift on it and everything. The problem with the frame extensions, they were really poor condition. We did patch it up. We've done a lot of work on it. But before it becomes totally unreliable.
So we have about 18 residents that use it, 2 or 3 times a week?
I don't know if we're that many. That's why we were trying to do the alternate with the minivan for just doctor's appointments and running lunches, because do you remember back, we had a hard time finding a bus driver that.
Correct.
So when you get into the CDL qualifications for this type of vehicle, it's hard to find that person. But I know they do use the bus for like the skiing trips. And so it does get utilized. You need it. But we felt if we could get a smaller minivan for, the days that they only had a few, or running lunches or doing doctor's appointments, that would help the longevity of the bigger bus. Less miles, less use.
So it's not to replicate the current bus. It's a smaller type of vehicle that's going to have some additional like ADA compliant. Is that what you're saying?
The bus that we're purchasing
Mhm.
it's similar to the one that we currently have. It's a larger bus, same capacity, and it does have a wheelchair ramp on the back, so which we currently have. So we kind of duplicated what we have, just a newer model.
What happened with the idea of the minivan? I remember we talked about it and you were going to possibly outfit it. I know, just
Money.
it was back and forth.
And I know Beth and I know the supervisor were both exploring. There was some different types of grants that might have fell under. I'd still advocate for that, and I know it was a good idea back then. So if we could find funding, if we could find some way of doing it, I think overall it'd be a great addition to the rec center and what you do for your people down there.
Do you remember the price on the bus?
On the bus,
Yeah.
I think it's on 120, so it's a little bit under what I had put in for.
See, we wanted to get the minivan and then didn't find the funding for that. But in the meantime, the bus that we have, okay, Ray's recommendation is we really need to move on it because we're sort of on a little bit of borrowed time with it.
And
So-
they're specially built, so it
Yeah.
takes.
He's put his effort into,
Well, it sounds
you
like
know,
a safety issue at this point.
right, want to get that. Hopefully we could get a minivan. I know we approved that, but we never apparently got any funding for that.
The last little bit of looking we did for a minivan is between like 40 and 45 in there for a decent passenger minivan, because we looked at having the sliders on both sides for accessibility for the seniors, so.
And we think we have enough seniors that will use the facility and these vehicles to justify the expense? Are there that many seniors using the facility and will be using the, whatever trips that they go on? It's a good chunk of change. I just want to make sure we have the people that are gonna,
Yeah,
Bill.
Lori can speak to that.
okay.
Absolutely. This is used twice a week, at least at a minimum. I'm not going to say it's totally full, but they are shuttling seniors back and forth to the center, to doctor's appointments, to get their groceries. So it is heavily used and it's needed.
Thank you.
Okay.
And they don't always need the big bus, the wheelchairs, that, right? But that's like the number one vehicle that we sort of have to have.
But if
We'd
we
like
are
to-
gonna provide them services, you need that wheelchair, that vehicle that can handle a wheelchair and get them in safely, so.
And his
If
point
we're
about getting a
providing it, we gotta
minivan
have it.
would supplement that. If we had that, the usage of the bigger bus would go down. Because then if they didn't have people that needed the wheelchair ramp or that kind of thing, they could take the smaller vehicle.
Is there a way to outfit have them in the outfitted minivans? Would that be something that's
The
useful and
minivan, we
practical?
were gonna keep basic just for seniors that were mobile. And then the bus driver gets alerts of who he's picking up, so he's aware of what circumstances the people have. So he would be able to take one or the other, depending on his capacity for the day or,
Right.
who we had to pick up, so.
I'm just wondering if it might be it's easier to drive a minivan. It sounds like it's more comfortable.
Yeah.
If we could outfit it for a wheelchair, it might be just a nice,
The thing with those type of vehicles, I'm very familiar with them. They don't handle many passengers. So you have the driver, the passenger seat, and you might get one other person other than a person in a wheelchair in that kind of minivan. At least the one that we had.
When
My
you
father had-
retro
my
them,
father
yeah,
had one
we
of
gotta
those. Yeah.
change the whole dynamics of it. At least the other way, you get a third row. You can get
Right.
in there.
Yes, and I'll just speak from my own experience. When my mom lived with us for 3 years, I signed her up for the senior center. I said, Mom, you have to go to the senior center. You have to. And she would get picked up every week, twice a week to go. And it was amazing. It was really important and life-changing because she was kind of just staying at home. And when I visited the senior center just last month, I could see the numbers were increasing. There were a lot of folks there. I mean, there was probably about 20, 25 people there for lunch. And so I'm really hopeful that as we are moving forward and hopefully, with COVID, we're coming to some sort of, resolution. More people are going to be coming out and using it. And I know you've spoken to Lori, how you're seeing an increase in seniors at the senior center. So I think it's an important piece.
I do want to say one more thing.
Mm-hmm.
As numbers do go down, our trips are going to start to increase. And that's where we had the numbers going to the track, going to the casino. So you do need a bigger bus
Going to Lake George.
going to Lake George.
Don't forget the guy.
We're not
that
going
hit a
on the
bus.
boat. So you do need something larger to accommodate.
and like you said, for the ski trips for the kids, that they utilize that completely.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lori. Where are we?
You know, speaking of that, I'm just being persnickety here. Senior center, if it's used by multiple groups, maybe we also can say, to be used at the senior center and for youth programming, since it's used for both. Okay. Mm-hmm.
Number 13, a resolution authorizing the sale of surplus. We started a small list of some of the Army surplus equipment that we had at the highway. We're going through different buildings trying to get rid of some of the stuff that we don't use. I talked to Beth about a couple pieces outside of the list that I turned in that we would be looking to upgrade, but we would look and see what kind of money we got out of the surplus and see if we can make it work. So kind of heading that direction. One that didn't get on here that I said I would add is a resolution appointing, I have a seasonal worker and possibly a grounds maintenance worker that I spoke of during the committee that I said I was going to review some old applications that I had and see if there was still interest. So I know I have one seasonal worker that I turned in the paperwork to Janet today and possibly a grounds worker. So thank you for your consideration in this.
Thanks, Ray.
Okay, number 14 is a resolution to accept the sewer line on Aqueduct Road. This was installed as part of the Rivers Ledge project. In order for the town to allow anyone else to tie into that line, it has to be accepted as a public utility. So we need to draft a resolution to do that because all the review and inspection has taken place and we're happy with the condition of the pipe. So we want to take that. 15 is a resolution that would allow individual properties on Aqueduct Road to enter into outside user agreements to tie into that line. These are existing homes. There's 3 of them with failing septic systems that want to tie in. One's at 2594, the other one's at 2835 and 2845 Aqueduct Road.
Matt, just to clarify, so number 15 can't happen until number 14 happens?
Correct. 16 is a resolution for a fence easement agreement on at 1317 Roughner Road. The owner wants to install a fence within a sanitary sewer easement along the back of their property line. We've looked at it, and I've talked to Ray as well because there's also a storm sewer line in the area as well. The fence will be located outside of our direct conflict with our pipe, but it would still be within the easement. So we just need the fence easement agreement. 17, I'm going to pull for now. COVID and some other issues have delayed our interview process. 18 is a resolution. It's a tentative one to appoint a maintenance worker in the water and sewer crew. We are still actively seeking applicants. Probably going to advertise again, probably in the Times Union. It's just very hard to find applicants to work with the unique qualifications that we're looking for. And fortunately, this is to backfill a position that was vacated by someone who took a job with a private company, which I'm not going to fault them for trying to improve themselves. So 19 is a resolution authorizing the first quarter corporate utility warrant. The numbers have been calculated by our water billing clerk. We're checking the numbers now, and we'll have everything ready for the resolution at the end of the month. 20 is a tentative resolution to appoint a transfer station attendant. We just appointed one, but a former attendant at the transfer station is back in town and is interested in working there. So I need to meet with him and decide to see what level of interest he has and whether or not, because in the past we've had 2 and sometimes 3 people working there at the same time. We've run it during COVID with one attendant just because they stayed in the shed. They didn't get out. They didn't interact too much with the public, but there is some level of service that has gone down because of that. During the busy days, I'm sure you can say that too, you can agree, on especially Saturday mornings, it can be pretty busy, and to have two people down there is helpful. And also would give some backup in case the primary worker down there is unavailable. Right now, we have no backup. So I'll have that information for resolution if everything works out, probably by next week. Any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
Number 21 is a resolution hiring pool staff, playground staff, and independent contractors. This is my seasonal resolution, quite lengthy, but has all of the pool staff, summer playground staff, and also the independent contractors that are running our summer programs. Number 22 is a resolution approving a standard license agreement. This, correct me if I'm wrong, is the standard license agreement that's going along with the facilities use manual. And number 23 is a resolution setting the dates and rates for the farmers market. Does anyone have any questions? Okay,
Is the facility use manual online yet?
it is.
It is,
Yeah,
okay.
it's under the Parks tab.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Number 24 is a resolution putting together a comprehensive plan committee. Still working on this. Hopefully it'll be ready at the end of the month, but we're not guaranteeing it. We'll see what we can do. Number 25 is a resolution of making a task force to look into the town seal. We had a good presentation at our Economic Development Committee meeting from a town resident about what they, want to do. So I think we've got like 5 names on that resolution so far.
Laura, is our historian going to be chairing that group?
I think he's on it, but I think the resident that did the presentation at Economic Development is the lead. It's a lady, I can't remember her name off the top of my head, but she came and did that presentation, and she's very passionate about wanting to make the seal the best that it can be and get, public input on any, changes that we might want to make it more up to date.
Dennis, our town historian's obviously going to be on the committee.
Yeah, because, for
Very well.
continuity and making sure that it incorporates all the different, things that go into a town seal.
Okay, thank you.
And then 26 is a change order for the bicycle pedestrian grant that we got from Phil Steck. And that is because when we were originally doing all the crosswalks that were submitted under this project, we had a crosswalk at St. Joseph's and River to get the people from St. Joseph's over to GE. And there's like a parking area there, and it interferes with safety of the bicycles and the pedestrians crossing it. So our engineer needs to redesign that to remove the parking and make it safe for people to cross there. And it requires more meetings with Schenectady County, additional site distance analysis, and some illustrative renderings. And so that change order is $7,200. Hopefully, it doesn't change the total of any of the grant funds, because Kelt's Farm is actually putting in one of the other pedestrian crosswalks that was part of this grant on their own, because the planning board negotiated that with them. So the hope of this is that it just rolls right into the grant. It offsets some of the change of scope, and then we get a really nice crossing at St. Joseph's.
Will you remind me again where the other crossing is near Kelt's Farm? River Road? or-
Yeah, so right now there's a crossing at
Yes.
River Hill.
It's right near the baseball fields, right?
Yeah, so it's if you're like driving like southbound on River Road, it's the first road on the right after you pass Blatnick Park has a bit of bike trail, and then there's a non-perpendicular crosswalk that crosses there. It's not super well signed. It's not super safe.
Nope.
It's really never a good idea to not have a perpendicular crosswalk across the road more time that somebody's in the road. So Kelt is bringing the multi-use path to the entrance to Kelt's Farm. It'll be a perpendicular crossing, and it'll have lights. That was actually the intent of this grant, was to do the exact same thing. But since he was adding a road as part of like the mitigation for development, he is paying to put the crosswalk in. So then we have some ability to get a better design over on St. Joseph's.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah.
Thank you. I take it the planning department played a big role in that.
A planning board and Complete Streets and hopefully the planning department too.
Yes.
Yes. Any questions on any of those?
No, that's great. Thank you. Police and Public Safety Committee.
Good evening again. Number 27 is a resolution amending Chapter 37 of the Town Code of the Town of Niskuna entitled Police Department. We spoke about this a couple of meetings ago. There was a public hearing on this last meeting regarding some language cleanup and sort of taking out the desk officer position, the word patrolman as much as possible, and changing it to police officer. It's sort of a work in progress with this resolution. Number 28 is a resolution permanently appointing a sergeant. Sergeant Jeffrey Relation is our overnight midnight sergeant. He's coming up on his 6-month end of his probationary period at the end of June. And according to civil service, they like to have these on for the first of the month prior to when it expires so that they can do all of their processing. So hence why it would be on for the end of May. And then lastly, as I spoke about in the Finance and General Government Committee, just a tentative resolution for the COPS grant for us to be able to apply for that. Councilman Delarada, you weren't here for that one, the COPS grant. I handed out a copy of it. If you have any questions, just see me. I don't know if anybody has any other questions regarding that stuff.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. So that's all we have for tonight's agenda meeting. I'll make a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. We stand adjourned. Thank you.